Εξομολογήστε το Κύριο διαγρατός, αλληλούια, ότι στον αιώνα το έλεος αυτού, αλληλούια.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Can I just ask you about that halal meat?
Yeah.
I do believe, I may be wrong, you can correct me, that all the abattoirs in this country now are halal meat because it was not profitable to have two systems running. That's what I was led to believe.
Okay.
Is there any truth in that?
No. The fact is counterfactual. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that there are abattoirs that are halal and there are abattoirs that are not halal. But the thing is, if all of us just go along with buying halal meat, eventually that will create an economic environment in which all the abattoirs swap over to halal meat. And you will all be funding Islamic dawah. Now let me ask you this question. Put your hand up if you agree with me that a Christian cannot fund Islamic missionary work. Therefore, you cannot buy halal meat because halal businesses pay zakat and zakat funds dawah, which means that you can't buy halal meat, you need to refuse. But if you refuse to buy halal meat, you will create economic pressure that means that there will be abattoirs that are not halal. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
As a Christian, so I know why the Jews eat kosher, and granted kosher is quite expensive. So what is are we allowed to, like the whole blood thing, right? So that's why they use kosher. We as Christians, what's our regulation?
Okay, so why shouldn't we use halal meat? Because of the economic argument that I just gave you. It's not because halal meat is magic, or that by eating it you bring some curse upon yourself, or that by Muslims saying the Bismillah they've managed to pass some magical power over the meat. Allah doesn't exist, he's a false god. There is no Allah. But the point is, if you buy halal meat, you're paying zakat. And if you're funding zakat, you're funding dawah. And Christians can't fund dawah. So that means we can't buy halal meat. So, just like we should boycott casinos, and just like we should boycott gambling shops, and wine shops and alcohol shops, we should also, and why we should boycott strip clubs, we should also boycott any halal meat. Any other questions or comments? Come on, bro.
What about buying and trading in the stock market? Is that gambling?
So buying and trading on the stock market also needs correction. Now, I'm not an economist enough to be able to elucidate the ways that the stock market should be corrected or how it should be corrected. However, I believe in my principle. I believe that the stock market is akin to gambling, and therefore my principle should in some manner and form be applied to the stock market. I'm simply not knowledgeable about economics to tell you in what way. Any other questions or comments? Going once? Sister. I can't hear you.
You were saying that instead of people buying and eat meat, it's getting punished.
Yes.
It's not just that they introduce the way they put the animal into suffering, and then that kind of...
Okay, I get the point. I get the point. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Christians, I'm sure you're all convinced, hopefully, by my religious argument. But here's an argument that's just separate from all of that, as an encouragement, another encouragement as to why we should ban halal meat and why we should boycott halal meat. Halal meat involves animal cruelty. An animal, to be killed in a halal way, must be conscious as its throat is slit. In other words, it endures the suffering of its throat being slit. In non-halal abattoirs, they have a special device, a bolt gun, that shoots into the brain and then releases high voltage electrocution into the brain. It kills the animal in seconds. The brain is fried in seconds. In halal meat, they cut the throat and it suffers as it suffocates to death.
I've seen it happen.
So, I've got members of my family who've worked in abattoirs.
I've seen it in all happen.
So the point is, for those of you that aren't Christian and you don't believe in my religious argument, that's an argument that you can believe in. Any other, you had a question or a comment?
Are we forbidden to eat blood? Or not eating, drinking? I'm not saying like a vampire, I'm just saying like, what's that pudding? What's it called? Black pudding?
Black pudding.
Yeah, so you're talking about the First Council of Jerusalem. When,
Say that Acts 15 as well.
yeah, that's the First Council of Jerusalem. So in the First Council of Jerusalem, the apostles taught that on the Gentile church, and this is important for a bigger debate about whether Christians should follow the Mosaic law, because the apostles addressed that question and said the answer was no, we don't require Gentiles to follow the Mosaic law, only that they abstain from meat offered to idols, meat that is strangled, the drinking of blood, and sexual immorality. The reason why the apostle said that is because strangled meat, the drinking of blood, was connected to pagan temple worship. Those rules applied in a context that no longer exists. And so, in our world, eating things like black pudding is not connected to pagan temple worship. And so a Christian is free, according to the principle of a free conscience, either to continue to keep the injunction of the Jerusalem church and not eat blood like black pudding, or blood sausages like they do in Poland, or to eat them so long as all that they do to the glory of God. However, if what you do causes your brother or sister to stumble, so for example, say you meet a Hindu, and in that Hindu culture, eating blood is connected to the worship of a Hindu god, and they see you eat blood, and they're shocked and horrified because to them, what you're doing is worshipping a false god. In that instance, you should stop doing it. And that's why Acts 15 and Paul's teachings are the same. Any other questions or comments? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times?
3.5.
Done. Have you got a question? Right, do you have to go to church to be a Christian? Let's be clear. If you are a Christian, you are the church. However, the apostles said, do not give up meeting together. So Christians should be in regular contact with one another, regular meeting together with one another. So no, you don't go to church to be a Christian, but if you're going to be a Christian, you should meet regularly with other Christians. So make of that answer what you will. Any other questions?
What do you think Labour's going to do in the next 4 years?
Sorry?
What do you see Labour doing in the next few years?
Right.
To our detriment.
So the question is about what I think Labour's going to do. Since we're no longer talking about Christianity, I'm going to stop the Q&A there. I'm going to go for a coffee. If you would like to join me for a coffee, you can come with me now and we'll all grab a coffee together, and I'll do a bit of an in-person seminar for anybody that wants it.